The shuttle descended through the purple clouds of Viridian Prime, carrying the newest batch of cadets to the Galactic Naval Academy. Inside the passenger bay, Hana Kim sat alone in the back row, watching the other students chatter excitedly among themselves. She could hear their conversations even from a distance. Her hearing was better than most of theirs, though she had learned not to mention that fact. The Academy orbited a beautiful world where everything seemed softer than Earth. The gravity was lighter. The air was cleaner. Even the sunlight felt gentler somehow. Hana had spent 3 weeks adjusting to this new environment, and it still felt strange. Everything felt too easy here, like walking on a trampoline instead of solid ground. She pressed her hand against the window and watched the massive station come into view. The academy was enormous, a spinning wheel of metal and glass that housed 10,000 students from across the galaxy. Somewhere in that structure, she would spend the next 4 years training to become an officer in the Coalition Navy, if she survived that long. The other cadets barely glanced at her. She was used to that by now. Humans were new to the galactic community, and most species saw them as primitive creatures from a dangerous backwater planet. Earth had only made contact with alien civilizations 50 years ago, and the meeting had not gone smoothly. The first alien diplomats who visited Earth had been shocked by what they found. They called Earth a Class 12 death world. Out of millions of known planets in the galaxy, only 12 were considered more dangerous to life. Earth had predators that could kill with a single bite. It had weather that could destroy entire cities. It had earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, and a gravity well that made every movement exhausting. Most intelligent species evolved on Calm Garden, worlds where the biggest threat was deciding what to eat for lunch. Humans evolved in a place that tried to kill them every single day. The shuttle docked with a soft hiss and the cadets began filing out. Hana grabbed her bag and joined the line, her boots making loud thuds against the metal floor. The other students seemed to float when they walked, barely touching the ground. She felt like an elephant stomping through a flower garden. The registration hall was beautiful, all crystal walls and floating lights. Hundreds of cadets from dozens of species filled the space, their voices creating a symphony of strange sounds. Hana saw beings with scales, beings with fur, beings that looked like walking plants, and things she could not even begin to describe. She was the only human in sight. She found her registration station and pressed her hand against the scanner. A holographic display flickered to life, showing her room assignment and class schedule. Everything looked straightforward enough. Orientation would begin tomorrow, followed by physical assessments and the combat readiness trial at the end of the week. "Look at that one," a voice said behind her. "Is that really a Terran?" Hana did not turn around. She had learned to ignore the whispers. "It must be," another voice replied. "I heard they only sent one this year, probably to see if humans can even survive the training." "My cousin told me Terrans have to eat dead animals to survive," a third voice added.
Can you imagine?
"They actually kill other living things and consume their flesh." The voices belonged to 3 cadets standing near a decorative fountain. One was a Velen, a species with translucent skin that shimmered in the light. The second was a Quilix with 4 arms and compound eyes. The third was a Nyx, serpentine and elegant, with scales that changed color with her mood. Right now, those scales showed green and yellow, the Nyx equivalent of amused contempt. Hana finished her registration and walked toward the dormitory section. The 3 cadets watched her pass, not even bothering to lower their voices. "It walks so heavily," the Velen said. "Like every step requires effort." "That is because it comes from a high-gravity world," the Quilix explained. "Their planet tries to crush them constantly. They spend their whole lives fighting just to stand up." "How barbaric," the Nyx added. "I cannot imagine living like that." Hana kept walking. She had heard worse during her weeks at the preparation facility. Some species saw humans as violent primitives. Others saw them as fragile creatures who would break under real pressure. A few saw them as both somehow. None of them really understood what it meant to come from Earth. Her room was small but functional, with a bed, a desk, and a window overlooking the planet below. She dropped her bag on the floor and sat down, feeling the unfamiliar lightness in her muscles. On Earth, sitting down felt like relief. Here it felt like floating. She missed the weight of home, the constant resistance that made her body work for every movement. The door chimed, and a holographic instructor appeared in the center of the room. "Welcome to the Galactic Naval Academy." the hologram said in a flat, synthesized voice. You have been assigned to Training Wing 7, Section 4. Your primary instructor will be Velmore of Krithia. Classes begin at Sunrise Standard Time. Physical assessments will occur throughout the week, culminating in the combat readiness trial on the 7th day. Failure to pass the trial will result in immediate dismissal from the academy. Do you have any questions? No, Hana said. Very well. Welcome aboard, Cadet Hana Kim of Terra. The hologram vanished. Hana lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. 7 days until the trial. 7 days to prove she belonged here. She thought about the whispers, the looks, the casual dismissal from species who thought they were better than her. They saw her as weak because she came from a dangerous world. They thought survival on Earth meant humans were desperate, not strong. They did not understand that Earth made you fight for everything. It made you fast or you got caught by predators. It made you tough or you died from injury. It made you smart or you made fatal mistakes. Every human alive was descended from ancestors who survived when millions of others did not. That legacy lived in every cell of her body. She closed her eyes and let herself remember home. She remembered running on the beach with real gravity pulling at her legs. She remembered hiking in the mountains where the air was thin and every breath was work. She remembered martial arts training where one mistake could mean real injury. Earth did not coddle its children. It made them earn every single day they lived. The next morning, Hana joined her class in the main training hall. Instructor Velmore stood at the front of the room, a towering Krithian with 6 eyes and bronze-colored skin. His species had dominated galactic military academies for centuries. They were known for being tough, disciplined, and impossible to impress. Cadets, Velmore's voice boomed across the hall. You are here because your worlds believe you have potential. Over the next 4 years, we will determine if that belief is justified. Most of you will fail. Some of you will quit. A few of you will succeed. The combat readiness trial will be your first real test. His eyes swept across the assembled students and stopped on Hana. For those of you unfamiliar with proper conduct, let me be clear. This academy does not care about your species, your homeworld, or your political connections. We care only about results. You will be judged by your performance, nothing else. Hana met his gaze without flinching. She knew that speech was meant for her as much as anyone else. Maybe more. The week passed in a blur of classes, physical tests, and evaluations. Hana performed adequately in academics and excelled in physical trials, though she was careful not to show her full capabilities. She had learned that standing out too much only brought unwanted attention. Better to seem average until it mattered, but she could not hide everything. During the strength assessment, she accidentally lifted weights that made the evaluator's eyes widen. During the endurance run, she finished in half the expected time while barely breathing hard. During the reaction test, she caught objects before the other cadets even saw them move. The whispers grew louder. The looks became more frequent. By the 6th day, everyone in her class knew about the strange Terran who seemed stronger and faster than she had any right to be. On the morning of the combat readiness trial, Hana stood in the preparation room and checked her equipment. The trial would test everything: speed, strength, tactics, and the ability to think under pressure. It was designed to push cadets to their absolute limits. She was ready. Earth had already pushed her further than this academy ever could. The combat readiness trial arena was exactly 30 meters across, with smooth metallic flooring that reflected the overhead lights. Transparent walls surrounded the circular platform, allowing observers to watch from all sides. Above the arena, holographic displays showed real-time data about heart rate, movement speed, and combat efficiency. Every cadet's performance would be recorded and analyzed in excruciating detail. Hana walked onto the platform and felt dozens of eyes watching her. The observation deck was packed with students from all 7 training wings. Word had spread that the Terran would go first, and nobody wanted to miss what promised to be an entertaining disaster. Some cadets had even started a betting pool on how quickly she would be defeated. Instructor Velmore stood at the control panel, his 6 eyes scanning the equipment readouts. He had reviewed Hana's file the previous night and found himself puzzled by the data. Her strength scores seemed impossibly high. Her reaction times bordered on superhuman, even by galactic standards. He had assumed the testing equipment was miscalibrated or that she had somehow cheated the assessments. Today would reveal the truth. Cadet Hana Kim, Velmore announced, his voice echoing through the arena. You will face 3 standard combat drones. Your objective is to disable all 3 using any means necessary. Non-lethal force only. You have 5 minutes to complete the trial. Do you understand? Yes, sir, Hana called back. In the observation deck, the 3 cadets who had mocked her on arrival day watched with undisguised amusement. The Velen, whose name was Rix, leaned against the railing with a smug expression. 5 minutes, Rix said. I give her 30 seconds before she surrenders. The Quillix named Vorn chittered in agreement. The drones are programmed for Coalition standard combat patterns. They are fast, coordinated, and relentless. Most cadets barely survive 1 drone, let alone 3. The Nyx called Kira flicked her tongue thoughtfully. Perhaps we are being too harsh. She might last a full minute if she is lucky. Other cadets nearby laughed. The general consensus was clear. The human would fail quickly and humiliatingly. A few students felt pity for her. Most just wanted to see what would happen when a Deathworlder met real galactic combat standards. Down in the arena, Hana rolled her shoulders and took a deep breath. The gravity here was set to Coalition standard, which meant 0.6 Earth normal. Everything felt light, almost dreamlike. She had spent the past week moving carefully, trying not to accidentally break equipment or hurt anyone during training exercises. Now, for the first time since leaving Earth, she could actually move without holding back. Well, mostly without holding back. She still needed to be careful not to reveal too much. Trial parameters confirmed, Velmore said. Arena gravity set to 0.6 standard. Atmosphere normal. Combat drones armed with non-lethal suppression weapons. Cadet, take your ready position. Hana bent her knees slightly and lowered her center of gravity. It was a stance her martial arts instructor back on Earth had drilled into her for years. Stable, balanced, ready to move in any direction. Around her, the 3 combat drones powered up with soft whirring sounds. They were sleek machines, each about a meter tall with multiple arms and advanced sensors. These drones could fight multiple opponents simultaneously and had defeated experienced soldiers in training exercises. 3. Velmore counted down. 2, 1, begin. The drones launched forward instantly, moving with mechanical precision. Their coordination was perfect, attacking from 3 different angles to eliminate any escape routes. It was a standard tactic designed to overwhelm cadets through superior numbers and positioning. Most students would panic, try to defend against all 3 simultaneously, and get quickly overwhelmed. Hana did not panic. She exploded forward. The movement was so fast that several cadets in the observation deck gasped. One moment she was standing still. The next she was at full speed, covering 5 meters in less than a second. The reduced gravity meant her Earth-trained muscles could propel her forward with terrifying acceleration. The first drone reached her, its appendage extending in a strike programmed to stun. Hana's hand shot out and grabbed the appendage mid-strike. Her fingers closed around the metal with crushing force, and before the drone could process what was happening, she pivoted on her heel. On Earth, throwing a 60-kilogram object required serious effort. Here, with gravity at 0.6, that same object felt like it weighed 36 kilograms. Hana's muscles, built to function under Earth's crushing pull, made the throw look effortless. She swung the drone like a hammer and released it directly into the path of the second approaching drone. The collision was spectacular. Metal crashed against metal with a sound that made everyone wince. Both drones tumbled across the arena floor, their systems scrambling to reorient. Damage alerts flashed on their internal systems. The impact had been far harder than their programming anticipated. The third drone adapted quickly, adjusting its attack pattern. It leaped upward, trying to strike from above where most ground-based opponents could not effectively defend. It was a smart tactic that worked against most species. Hana simply jumped after it. Her leap carried her 3 meters into the air, far higher than should have been possible for someone her size. In Earth gravity, she could manage a vertical jump of maybe 60 centimeters. Here, with everything lighter, that same muscle power launched her into the air like she had springs in her legs. She caught the drone at the apex of its jump. Her hands locked around its central processor housing, and for a brief moment they hung suspended in the air together. Then gravity reasserted itself and they fell. Hana twisted in midair, positioning the drone beneath her. When they hit the ground, she drove it into the metal floor with all the force of her descent plus her Earth-trained strength. The impact was devastating. The drone's shutdown protocols engaged immediately, recognizing catastrophic damage. Hana rolled to her feet and turned to face the other two drones, which had just managed to stand up. They recalculated their approach, identifying this opponent as significantly more dangerous than expected. They began to circle her, moving in tandem, trying to find an opening. They never got the chance. Hana charged the nearest drone, feinted left, then struck right with a palm strike that caved in its sensor array. Blinded and disoriented, it stumbled backward. She followed up with a sweep kick that would have been moderately effective on Earth. Here, with reduced gravity, the kick sent the drone flying 3 meters sideways. It crashed into the arena wall and went still. The final drone fired its stun weapon, a pulse of energy designed to incapacitate nervous systems. Hana saw it coming, saw the weapon charging, saw the trajectory it would take. Her instructors back home had trained her to read body language and predict attacks. This machine had no body language, but its mechanical movements were even more predictable. She dropped into a slide, passing under the energy pulse by centimeters. Her momentum carried her right to the drone's position. She grabbed one of its legs, stood up, and simply threw it straight down into the floor with enough force to trigger every safety shutdown the machine possessed. Silence filled the arena. Hana stood in the center of the platform. 3 disabled combat drones scattered around her like broken toys. Her breathing was elevated but controlled. Her heart rate displayed on the monitors above was elevated but not dangerously so. She looked like someone who had just finished a light workout, not someone who had just fought 3 military combat drones. The timer on the holographic display read 6.3 seconds. In the observation deck, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Cadets who had been laughing moments ago now stared with their mouths open, or their equivalent facial features hanging slack. The betting pool was forgotten. The jokes died unspoken. Rix's translucent skin had turned pale. "That is impossible," he whispered. The record was 42 seconds. She beat it by 36 seconds. Vorn's forearms hung limply at his sides. "I have never seen anyone move that fast. Not even professional soldiers move that fast." Kira's scales had gone completely flat, a sign of deep shock in Nick's physiology. "Did you see how she grabbed that drone?" She crushed solid metal with her bare hands. Instructor Velmore stared at his control panel, checking and rechecking the data. The sensors had not malfunctioned. The drones had not failed. The trial had been completely legitimate. A first-year cadet on her first attempt had just shattered every combat record the Academy had maintained for over a century. He activated his communicator and descended to the arena floor. Hana stood calmly, waiting for his assessment. She did not look proud or excited. She looked like someone who had done a routine task and was waiting for the next instruction. "Cadet Hana," Velmore said slowly, his voice carefully neutral. "That was an impressive performance. Perhaps you could explain your tactical approach?" Hana met his six-eyed gaze without hesitation. "Sir, the drones were programmed for standard gravity and standard combat responses. They expected defensive tactics and gradual engagement. I used speed and direct force because I had the physical advantage. Physical advantage." The words echoed in Velmore's mind. This small cadet from a primitive death world had just described military combat drones as having a disadvantage against her. "You moved at speeds that should not be possible for your size and mass." The news spread through the Academy faster than a communication pulse. By evening, every cadet, instructor, and staff member had heard about the human who demolished the combat readiness trial in 6 seconds. The footage played on screens throughout the station, analyzed and reanalyzed by students who could not believe what they were seeing. In the cafeteria, clusters of cadets gathered around tables, their meals forgotten as they watched Hana's performance on their personal devices. The silence that followed each viewing was always the same: shocked, uncomfortable, and tinged with fear. "Play it again," a Draxian cadet named Kale demanded, his crystalline features reflecting the screen's glow. "I want to see the moment she catches the third drone." His companion, a furry Plinian called Tessa, shook her head slowly. "I have watched it 12 times. It does not become less terrifying with repetition. Look at how high she jumps. Look at how fast she moves. That should not be possible for any biological being." Across the cafeteria, Hana sat alone at a corner table, eating her meal and trying to ignore the stares. She had chosen synthesized proteins that approximated Earth chicken, along with vegetables and rice. The food tasted bland compared to home cooking, but it was nutritious and familiar enough to be comforting. 3 tables away, Rix, Vorn, and Kira sat in uncomfortable silence. They had not spoken much since the trial. Their earlier mockery felt hollow now, replaced by a creeping realization that they had badly misjudged the situation. "We should apologize," Kira said finally, her scales shifting to blue, indicating shame. "Our behavior was inappropriate." Vorn clicked his mandibles nervously. She probably did not even hear us. Terrans have poor sensory capabilities compared to most species. Their hearing range is quite limited. "Actually," said a passing Draxian student who overheard them. "I looked it up. Human hearing is significantly better than ours in certain frequency ranges. She definitely heard everything you said." The three cadets looked at each other with growing horror. In the instructor's wing of the station, Velmore sat in a conference room with 5 other senior teachers. The holographic display between them showed frozen frames from Hana's trial. Her grabbing the first drone, throwing it into the second, catching the third in midair, and delivering the final strikes. Each frame told the same story: overwhelming physical superiority. "This changes everything," said Instructor Miras, a Velen who taught advanced tactics. "If one human can perform at this level, what does that mean for the species as a whole?" "It means we have been catastrophically wrong about Deathworlders," replied Instructor Kix, a Quilix weapons specialist. "We assumed that survival on a dangerous planet made species desperate and brutal. We never considered that it might make them strong." Velmore pulled up Hana's full file, displaying it for everyone to see. Her physical assessments were accurate. "We thought the equipment malfunctioned because the numbers seemed impossible. Strength output at 300% of coalition average. Reaction time at 250% of baseline. Bone density at nearly 400% of standard. Those are not just good numbers," Mira said quietly. "Those are super soldier numbers. And she is not enhanced. This is just her natural biology." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Every species in the coalition had been evaluated and categorized based on their physical capabilities. Humans had been placed in the lower middle tier, considered physically average with no particular strengths. That assessment was clearly dangerously wrong. "We need to understand more," Velmore decided. "I want her tested again. Progressively difficult scenarios. We need to find her actual limits. Is that wise?" Kix asked carefully. "If we push too hard, we might injure her. Or worse, reveal capabilities that could frighten other member species." "It is too late for that," Velmore said, gesturing at the screen showing Hana's trial footage. "This recording has already been sent to every major military academy in Coalition space. Everyone is watching. Everyone is asking questions. We need answers before panic sets in." 3 days later, Hana was summoned to Velmore's office. She had spent the intervening time attending regular classes, trying to blend in and act normal. It had not worked. Everywhere she went, conversation stopped. Cadets moved out of her path. Nobody wanted to sit near her in class. The isolation was worse than the mockery had been. Velmore's office was austere, decorated only with commendations and strategic maps. The instructor stood beside his desk, and next to him was someone Hana had not expected to see. A Krithian officer wearing the deep purple uniform of a Grand Admiral. His rank insignia showed 6 stars, indicating one of the highest positions in the Coalition military. "Cadet Hana Kim," Velmore said formally. "This is Grand Admiral Nexor, commander of the 3rd Fleet. He wishes to speak with you." Hana snapped to attention. "Sir." Nexor studied her with all 6 eyes, his expression unreadable. He was enormous even for a Krithian, standing nearly 3 meters tall with bronze skin and ceremonial scarring along his arms. He had commanded fleets in 3 major conflicts and was considered one of the finest military minds in the galaxy. "At ease, Cadet," Nexor said, his voice like distant thunder. "Your performance has caused quite a stir. Some believe you cheated. Others think the trial was rigged. A few paranoid species representatives have suggested you are some kind of enhanced weapon that Earth sent to infiltrate our military." Hana kept her expression neutral. "I use no enhancements, sir, no tricks. Just my training." "I believe you," Nexor said, surprising her, "which is precisely why I am here. I need to see what a Terran can truly do when properly challenged. Not in a test designed for average cadets, but in a real combat scenario." He gestured toward the window, where the main arena was visible in the distance. Hana could see work crews assembling something much larger than the standard trial platform. The construction looked military-grade, with reinforced walls and heavy-duty equipment. I have arranged a demonstration, Nexor continued. You will face 15 military assault drones. Not training models, but actual combat units used in active war zones. They are armed with non-lethal rounds but are otherwise fully operational. If you can defeat them, you will prove that your species deserves reconsideration in the Coalition rankings. Belmore shifted uncomfortably. Admiral, with respect, this is excessive. She is a first-year cadet. 15 assault drones could kill an experienced soldier. Exactly, Nexor said. We need to know if Terrans are soldiers who happen to be students, or students who happen to be Terran. There is a significant difference. He turned back to Hana. This is voluntary, cadet. You can refuse without penalty. But understand that your performance here will determine how the Coalition views your entire species. Humanity's reputation, their future military opportunities, their standing in galactic society, all of it rests on what happens in that arena. Hana felt the weight of that statement settle on her shoulders. She thought about Earth, about the billions of humans back home who were counting on her to succeed. She thought about the whispers, the mockery, the casual dismissal of her species as primitive and weak. She thought about her grandmother, who had fought in Earth's unification wars and told her that humanity's strength came from never backing down. I will do it, Hana said. But I have one condition. Nexor's eyebrows rose. You are negotiating with the Grand Admiral? Not negotiating, sir, requesting. I want the arena gravity set to Earth standard. 1 full G. The room went silent. Velmore stared at her like she had grown a second head. You want to make it harder on yourself? Velmore asked, incredulous. Why would you deliberately increase the difficulty? Hana met his gaze steadily. Because I have been fighting in reduced gravity for weeks, sir. It is like fighting underwater. I am not at my best here. If the Admiral wants to see what a Terran can really do, then let me show him on proper terms. Nexor studied her for a long moment. Then a slow smile spread across his face. It was the smile of a predator recognizing another predator. Granted, he said, full Earth gravity. Military combat scenario. Lethal force authorized for the drones, non-lethal required from you. We test in 3 days. That gives you time to prepare and gives us time to spread the word. This will be the most watched combat trial in Academy history. As Hana left the office, she heard Velmore speaking quietly to the Admiral. You realize what you are doing? The instructor said. If she fails, humanity will be humiliated. If she succeeds, you will terrify half the Coalition species who see the footage. Good, Nexor replied. Fear breeds respect, and respect is what humans will need if they are to survive in this galaxy. The next 3 days were surreal. News of the upcoming trial spread across the galactic network. Military analysts began speculating about human capabilities. Diplomatic channels lit up with concerned messages from species worried about the implications. Some called for the trial to be cancelled, arguing it was dangerous and unnecessary. But Nexor refused to back down, and Hana refused to quit. On the morning of the trial, the observation decks were packed beyond capacity. Students, instructors, and visiting officers crowded every viewpoint. Off-station, millions of beings across dozens of worlds tuned in to watch the live broadcast. The human from the Deathworld was about to face impossible odds, and everyone wanted to see what would happen. The arena had been completely rebuilt for the trial. Instead of the simple 30-meter platform used for standard tests, this was a full combat zone, 50 meters across, with multiple elevation levels, obstacles for cover, and reinforced walls designed to contain military-grade weapons fire. The viewing galleries were packed with spectators who had arrived hours early to secure positions. Hana stood in the preparation room, checking her equipment one final time. She wore standard cadet combat gear, lightweight armor, flexible boots, and gloves designed for grip. The gear felt strange on her body, too light and too loose. Everything here was built for species from gentler worlds. The door opened and Instructor Velmore entered. He looked tense, his 6 eyes constantly moving as if searching for threats that were not there. Cadet, he said quietly, you can still withdraw. Nobody would think less of you. 15 assault drones is beyond excessive. Even veteran soldiers struggle against that many. Hana finished adjusting her glove and looked up at him. Sir, with respect, people already think less of me. They think less of my entire species. This is not about the trial anymore. This is about proving we belong here. Velmore was silent for a moment, When I reviewed your file, I thought the numbers were errors. I could not imagine any species producing soldiers with your physical capabilities without genetic enhancement. I was wrong. Your entire species is like this, are they not? Not exactly like this, Hana admitted. I am well-trained and in good condition. But yes, any healthy human could probably perform at levels that surprise you. We evolved on a planet that did not give us any choice except to be strong. That is what frightens them, Velmore said, gesturing toward the arena where thousands waited. They are realizing that Deathworlders are not tragic victims of harsh environments. They are apex predators wearing civilized faces. Before Hana could respond, an announcement echoed through the facility. Trial begins in 5 minutes. All participants report to stations. Velmore placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch surprisingly gentle for such a large being. Fight well, Cadet, and try not to humiliate us too badly. I still have to teach your classmates after this is over. Hana walked down the corridor toward the arena entrance. She could hear the crowd noise even through the thick walls. Thousands of voices speaking dozens of languages, all waiting to see what would happen. The pressure should have been crushing. Instead, she felt calm. This was familiar territory. Humanity had been underestimated before and had proven everyone wrong. Time to do it again. The arena doors opened and she stepped onto the platform. The crowd noise immediately died to silence. Every eye stalk and sensor focused on her. Hana walked to the center of the arena, her boots making solid thuds against the reinforced floor. Around the perimeter, 15 assault drones powered up with mechanical whirs and clicks. These were not training models. They were actual military hardware, each equipped with real weapons, advanced sensors, and combat programming designed to kill enemy soldiers. In the command center, Grand Admiral Nexor stood before a wall of monitors showing multiple angles of the arena. Beside him, a team of technicians monitored the drone systems and environmental controls. One technician was adjusting the gravity settings, slowly increasing the field strength. Gravity now at 0.8 standard, the technician reported, increasing to 1.0 Earth gravity. On the monitors, they could see Hana's posture begin to change. The slight stiffness that had marked her movement since arriving at the academy melted away. Her stance became more natural, more grounded. She rolled her shoulders and bent her knees slightly, testing the new weight. She looks different, observed Commander Thale, a Velen officer who served as Nexor's tactical advisor. More comfortable somehow. Because this is her natural environment, Nexor replied. We have been watching her move in slow motion for weeks. Now we will see her at actual speed. In the observation decks, cadets pressed against the transparent walls. Rix, Vorn, and Kira had managed to secure spots in the front row. They had spent the past 3 days watching and re-watching Hana's first trial, trying to understand what they had witnessed. Do you really think she can win against 15? Kira asked nervously. The odds are impossible. I watched her throw a combat drone like it was a toy, Vorn replied quietly. At this point, I am not sure what is impossible for Terrans. The crowd noise faded to absolute silence as Grand Admiral Nexor's voice echoed through the arena. Cadet Hana Kim of Terra. You face 15 military assault drones equipped with stun rounds and combat programming. Your objective is to disable all units using non-lethal force. Arena conditions, Earth standard gravity, standard atmosphere. You may begin when ready. Hana took a deep breath. The increased gravity felt like coming home, like shrugging off a heavy blanket she had been wearing for weeks. Her muscles stopped fighting the environment and started working with it. This was what she was built for. This was what evolution had designed her body to handle. She nodded once. Ready. Begin. The 15 drones activated simultaneously, their coordination perfect. They spread out in a tactical formation, some moving high, some low, all of them working together to eliminate escape routes and overwhelm their target through superior numbers and positioning. It was a military strategy designed by experts who had studied thousands of combat scenarios. Hana moved. What happened next would be studied, analyzed and debated in military academies across the galaxy for decades to come. She did not move like someone entering combat. She moved like a force of nature that had been temporarily restrained and was finally allowed to act without limitation. In Earth gravity, with her Earth-trained muscles, she was not just fast. She was devastating. The first 3 drones never registered what happened. Hana covered the distance to them so quickly that their sensors struggled to track her movement. She grabbed the nearest drone, pivoted and used it as a weapon against the second, all while her other hand shot out to crush the third drone's sensor array. The entire sequence took less than 2 seconds. In the observation deck, someone dropped their drink. The container shattered on the floor, but nobody noticed because every eye was locked on the arena below. Hana did not pause to admire her work. She was already moving toward the next group of drones, which had adapted their formation and were spreading out to surround her. One fired a stun round at her back. She heard the weapon charging, calculated the trajectory, and simply was not there when the projectile arrived. She had moved 3 meters to the left while simultaneously leaping forward to engage 2 more drones. Her fighting style was unlike anything the observers had ever seen. It combined elements of multiple human martial arts, the efficient movements of judo, the devastating strikes of Muay Thai, the fluid transitions of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and the environmental awareness of Krav Maga. But more than technique, what made her fighting terrifying was the sheer physical capability backing it up. When she punched a drone, it did not just get damaged, it got launched backward. When she kicked, drones went flying. When she grabbed, metal crumpled. She was not fighting the drones so much as dismantling them with her bare hands. The drones tried everything. They coordinated attacks from multiple angles. They used elevation changes to gain advantages. They attempted to pin her down with suppressing fire. Nothing worked. Hana flowed through their formations like water, always where they did not expect, always faster than their programming could anticipate. One drone managed to get behind her, weapon raised for a point-blank shot. Hana ducked under the blast, grabbed the drone's weapon arm and used the drone's own momentum to flip it over her shoulder. In Earth gravity, the throw was brutal. The drone crashed into 2 of its companions, creating a tangle of metal and sparking circuits. 12 seconds, Commander Thale whispered, watching the timer. She has disabled 8 drones in 12 seconds. Grand Admiral Nexor said nothing. His 6 eyes were locked on the monitors, and his expression had shifted from curiosity to something approaching awe. He had seen combat. He had fought in wars. He had commanded soldiers who were considered the elite of galactic military forces. He had never seen anything like this. Hana grabbed a drone that was attempting to flee and spun it around her body like an athlete throwing a hammer. When she released it, the drone rocketed into 3 others, bowling them over like pins. She followed up immediately, not giving them time to recover, disabling each one with quick, precise strikes to their critical systems. 20 seconds, Thale reported. 13 drones down. The final 2 drones attempted a coordinated attack, coming at her from opposite directions simultaneously. It was their best tactical option, forcing her to deal with threats from multiple angles at once. Against most opponents, it would have worked. Hana jumped straight up, her powerful legs launching her 4 meters into the air. The 2 drones passed under her, their attacks hitting nothing but empty space where she had been standing. While airborne, she twisted her body, positioning herself perfectly. When she came down, she landed on one drone with both feet, driving it into the floor with crushing force. She rolled off it immediately, her momentum carrying her into the final drone, which she dispatched with a strike that sheared off its primary processing unit. Silence filled the arena. For 5 full seconds after Hana stopped moving, nobody in the observation galleries made a sound. They simply stared at the arena floor where 15 military assault drones lay scattered like broken toys around a single human cadet. The holographic timer still displayed the final number, 26.7 seconds. Less than half a minute to defeat military hardware designed to kill trained soldiers. Then slowly, someone started clapping. Others joined in. Within moments, the observation decks erupted in applause that shook the walls. It was not the polite acknowledgement of a good performance. It was the stunned appreciation of witnessing something that should have been impossible. In the command center, Grand Admiral Nexor stood motionless, his 6 eyes still locked on the monitors showing multiple angles of what had just occurred. Commander Thale stood beside him, reviewing combat data that scrolled across screens in rapid succession. "Admiral," Thale said quietly, his voice shaking slightly. "The drones recorded over 3,000 distinct movements from the cadet during the engagement. 3,000 tactical decisions, position changes, and attacks in under 27 seconds. That is more than 100 actions per second. Her reaction time," another analyst added, pulling up neural response data. "The drones recorded her responding to threats in an average of 0.12 seconds. That is faster than most species can even perceive danger, let alone react to it. Nexor finally moved, turning to face his staff. Compile everything. Every measurement, every data point, every second of footage. Send it to Coalition Command with a Priority 1 classification. Mark it as a Strategic Assessment Revision. What classification should we give the report, sir? Thala asked. Nexor looked back at the arena where Hana was being escorted out by security personnel who seemed afraid to get too close to her. Title it Reassessment of Deathworld Species Combat Capabilities. And add a personal note from me. We have been dangerously wrong about humans. Down in the arena preparation room, Hana sat on a bench and removed her gloves. Her hands were steady, though she could feel her muscles starting to protest the sudden intense activity after weeks of careful restraint. Instructor Velmore entered, followed by a medical team that immediately began scanning her for injuries. Cadet, Velmore said, his tone careful and measured. That was the most extraordinary combat performance I have witnessed in 37 years of teaching at this academy. It was also deeply disturbing. Hana looked up at him. Disturbing, sir? You disabled 15 military combat drones in less time than most cadets need to defeat one training unit, Velmore explained. You moved at speeds our sensors could barely track. You struck with force that crumpled reinforced metal. And according to the medical scans, you are not even injured. Not tired. Just slightly elevated heart rate and minor muscle strain. The medical technician confirmed this with a confused chirp. Cadets' vital signs are consistent with moderate exercise, not combat against overwhelming odds. Her physiology is recovering at an accelerated rate. Within 20 minutes, she will show no signs of stress at all. Velmore sat down on the bench across from Hana, his large frame making the furniture creak. Tell me truly, Cadet, was that your best performance? Or were you still holding back? Hana considered the question carefully. She thought about the training sessions on Earth, the brutal conditioning her instructors had put her through, the sparring matches against other humans who were just as fast and strong as she was. She thought about her grandmother's stories of combat on Earth, where soldiers fought in mountain ranges and jungles, where every battle was against gravity and terrain and enemies who were just as dangerous as any drone. I was not holding back during the fight, she said honestly. But on Earth, I would be training against other humans who could match my speed. The drones were formidable, but they were predictable. Real human opponents adapt and learn in ways machines cannot. The room went quiet. The implications of that statement settled over everyone present like a heavy blanket. If Hana was not exceptional among her species, if there were millions of humans with similar capabilities, then everything the Coalition thought they knew about military power needed to be reconsidered. In the observation decks, the reaction to the trial was spreading through the cadet population like shockwaves. Groups of students who had ignored or mocked Hana now watched the footage with fear and fascination in equal measure. Rick stood with his back against the wall, his translucent skin showing patterns of stress. We laughed at her, he said quietly. We called her primitive. We said she came from a world of barbarians. Vorn's forearms were crossed tightly across his chest, a quillic sign of deep discomfort. Perhaps we should reconsider what primitive means. Earth may lack some of our technology, but their environment created something we cannot replicate with all our advancement. It created warriors. Kira approached them, her scales showing blue and purple, the colors of shame and respect mixed together. We should apologize to her. Properly this time. What we said was not just rude. It was ignorant. She probably wants nothing to do with us, Rick said. Why would she forgive species who treated her like garbage? Because she is better than us, a new voice said. They turned to see Cadet Kale, the Draxian who had been watching Hana's footage repeatedly. Did you notice during the trial? 2 drones fired at her simultaneously from different angles. She could have dodged and let them destroy each other. Instead, she disabled both manually, ensuring minimum damage. She had the power to completely destroy them, but she showed restraint. That is not the behavior of a barbarian. That is the behavior of someone with discipline and control. Word of Hana's performance spread beyond the academy within hours. The footage was transmitted across the galactic network, analyzed by military strategists, discussed by diplomats, and watched by billions of civilians. Reactions varied wildly depending on species and perspective. Some saw it as inspiring proof that determination could overcome any odds. Others saw it as a terrifying revelation that humanity had been dramatically underestimated. A few extremist groups began calling for humans to be restricted or monitored, arguing that any species with such combat capabilities was a potential threat to galactic peace. But most people simply watched in awe and wondered what other surprises Earth held. 3 days after the trial, Hana was summoned to a formal meeting with Academy leadership. She entered a conference room to find not just Instructor Velmore and Grand Admiral Nexor, but also a holographic conference showing representatives from Coalition Command, the Diplomatic Corps, and several member species governments. Cadet Hana Kim, Nexor began formally. Your performance has forced the Galactic Coalition to reassess its understanding of human capabilities and potential. This meeting is to discuss the implications and determine next steps. A holographic Krithian general spoke first. Our military analysts have completed their assessment. Based on Cadet Hana's demonstrated abilities, we estimate that trained human soldiers could outperform our current special forces by a significant margin in ground combat scenarios. This represents a strategic shift in galactic military balance. A Velen diplomat chimed in, her tone nervous. Some member species are expressing concern about allowing humans into military leadership positions. They fear being subordinate to Deathworlder commanders. Then those species are fools, Nexor said bluntly. Humans have what we lack. Bodies forged by genuine survival pressure. They are faster, stronger, and more resilient than most of us. Moreover, they chose to join our civilization peacefully when they could have demanded better terms. That shows wisdom and restraint. The meeting continued for over an hour, with various representatives debating policy changes, training program modifications, and diplomatic considerations. Throughout it all, Hana sat quietly, letting them discuss her species as if she were not in the room. She had expected this. Humans were the new variable in an equation that had been stable for centuries. Finally, Nexor turned to her directly. Cadet, you have become a symbol whether you wanted to be or not. How humanity is perceived in the coming years will be influenced by your actions. What do you want to accomplish here? Hana thought about that question. She thought about Earth, about her family, about the billions of humans who were watching her from across the stars. She thought about the cadets who had mocked her, and the ones who now looked at her with fear. She thought about what it meant to represent her entire species. I want to graduate, she said simply. I want to become a good officer. I want to show that humans can work alongside other species, not above them or below them, but as equals. We are strong, yes. But strength without cooperation is just violence. Earth taught us to be survivors, but the Coalition can teach us to be something more. The room was quiet for a moment, then Nexor smiled. Well said, Cadet. I believe that is exactly the message the galaxy needs to hear. The meeting concluded with several decisions. Human physical capabilities would be properly documented and incorporated into Coalition military planning. Special training programs would be developed for mixed species units, and Hana herself would continue her education with additional responsibilities as a liaison between human and alien cadets. 6 months passed. The initial shock of Hana's performance faded into a